This was one of the worst days of my life. The doctors told me that I could have died, and thankfully I lived, but this injury changed the course of my life forever. I've been avoiding making this video for 7 years because the details reveal a part of me that honestly I don't think I've ever shared with you guys. There's a word that my family and friends have used to describe me my whole life: fearless. Growing up in Virginia, I was never afraid to put myself out there physically or socially. I started off at 6 years old doing Taekwondo, and by high school I was a competitive snowboarder, competing all over the country in border cross, slopestyle, sometimes hitting 40, 50, 60-foot jumps, doing flips, all kinds of crazy tricks. And then eventually I got into dance, which ironically was much scarier than being thrown off of a 60-foot jump. Getting up on stage, performing for people, it was terrifying, but it was also really exhilarating. You know, I didn't have any male dance role models necessarily in my life growing up, so being a guy and kind of facing that stigma, it was really challenging, but it was also something I was really passionate about. You know, not only was I one of the only guys I knew that ever danced, but I joined a dance crew and I was the only white guy on the team, which, you know, was pretty cool, honestly. And while there may have been other guys in my social circle that wanted to dance, a lot of them were just too intimidated or too scared to step outside of their comfort zone. But you know, I loved it, was passionate about it, so I was like, fuck it. And then overcoming fear went to a new level because I decided to pack up my two-door Honda Civic and drive across the country, leave my family, leave my friends, leave everything behind with really no job or no plan at all, and move to LA to try to become a professional dancer. And even years later, dancing and DJing in front of tens of thousands of people, working with celebrities, making YouTube videos when it wasn't cool to do. These are all things that I really should have been afraid to do, but I just loved that feeling of facing a challenge and overcoming it. And I think the main reason that I had this sense of fearlessness was my family. They always made me feel so safe and supported, and even when I was far away from home, I always had this sense of I could always go back and they would be there for me. And that's why in 2017, when I found out one of my closest cousins was getting married in Denver, I immediately took the time off and booked the trip. This was at the peak of my tours taking off, YouTube was exploding, and so things had been really busy at this point. I hadn't seen my family pretty much in a couple of years, and so for me it was really important to take this time and make the trip out there. I'd also always wanted to teach in Denver, so I thought it was a perfect opportunity, go out to the wedding, see my family, and then have these huge workshops after, make a full trip out of it. In my head, it was gonna be amazing. But little did I know it would lead to some going down that I never could have imagined. So I'm at the wedding. It's beautiful, fun, we're having an amazing time. It's in this small mountain town outside of Denver, forested area, just absolutely beautiful. And at one point after the ceremony, my cousin, who's the bride, introduced me to one of her best friends who's pregnant, her best friend's husband, and also their first kid. Quick disclaimer, one of the people in this story is out of jail now, so for privacy and safety reasons, I'm not gonna name any specific names. But anyway, so I met this couple and their kid, and something did seem a tiny bit off. But it was so brief, I didn't think anything of it, so we just continued with the party, having a great time. But then after the reception, me and a bunch of the other younger family and friends decided to go to an after party at a bar nearby. So we're at this bar, we're dancing, everyone's having a great time, when I realized that the husband is there. My cousin's best friend's husband, but the wife wasn't. And I thought, you know, she's pregnant, she's probably just tired, went home to rest. Now, I barely recognized this guy because I probably met a few hundred people that night, but I started noticing him looking over at us, and I was like, I think that's the guy I met earlier with the wife and kid at the wedding. And we were all in a group on the dance floor hanging out, but he was off in the corner by himself. But then things changed because I started noticing that he was looking at me, but not just looking, like lasered in, staring at me for a long time. And I was like, you know, what's this guy's deal? Why is he even here? But ultimately, I'm with my family and friends. I just dropped it and honestly didn't even think anything of it the rest of the night. I just remember thinking, like, it's really odd, but you know, no big deal. So I'm outside of the bar on a sidewalk, just calling an Uber, and it's fairly busy. The bar's closing, it's probably 1:30 at this point, so people are outside saying goodbye, calling cars and stuff. So I'm calling an Uber, I'm looking down at my phone, and next thing I know, I'm on the asphalt, like face down in the street. I didn't feel anything, I didn't see anything. I just remember waking up in the street. And it wasn't like I blacked out or passed out, I just couldn't remember how I got there or really understand even where I was. And as I roll over and look up, I see the guy, like the husband that was staring at me in the bar, standing over top of me. And I can see that he's yelling something at me, but I can't comprehend it. My ears were ringing, my vision was blurry, I couldn't understand anything, but I could see his aggression towards me. And that's when I realized he's not just yelling at me, he's coming towards me. Like he's really pissed. So I start backing up, just scrambling on the ground to try and get away. And that's when I put it together. This guy must have hit me. Like that's what's happening here. And now thinking back, like the fact that he hit me without me hearing it, seeing him, nothing at all. He didn't say anything. This was purely just a cheap shot. But now he's still coming at me, throwing more punches, trying to get on top of me. And I'm just trying to defend myself and keep backing away. And keep in mind, I don't even know this guy. Like I don't even know his name. I met him for 2 seconds earlier in the day at a wedding. Like I have no idea what's going on or what this is about. I'm just extremely confused, but at this point I'm coming back to my senses a bit and I'm able to finally understand a little of what he's saying to me. He's like, "What happened to your pretty face, pretty boy? And all the dancing guys not so cool now, huh?" And that's when I realized like this wasn't random, this was targeted. From the moment I got weird vibes when I met him, to him coming to the after party and staring at me all night, to him eventually attacking me, and now he's still coming at me. And this guy is big. Like I'm 6'2", 180 pounds. This guy's probably double my size. Just a massive, big, burly white dude from Texas. Like he looks like he could be an iron welder or something, like big dude. And I thought if he gets on top of me, he's going to kill me. But at that point I got really lucky because one of the girls that was nearby saw how badly I was hurt and what had happened, and she screamed. He noticed that there were a bunch of people around that had seen what had happened. And I guess he was scared of getting caught because he literally gets up, looks around, and just takes off running into the woods. And it's October in the mountains in Colorado, so it's maybe 20 or 30 degrees. It's freezing. So who knows what his plan was, but that was it. He was gone. So like 15, 20 minutes later, the cops and the paramedics come and they're like, "You need to go to the hospital, like this is bad." And I was like, "Are you sure? Like, you know, maybe I just need to clean it up and I can go home." And they were like, "No, you're going to the ER right now." And it was at that moment, while I'm talking to them about whether or not I'm gonna go to the hospital, that he comes walking back up the hill out of the woods, practically with hypothermia at this point because it's freezing cold out. And he's just acting like he doesn't know what's going on. And people are clearly pointing at him being like, "That guy did it." He's like, what? It wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about. But there's 15 people that just clearly saw what had happened. So the cops arrested him, took him in, and I went with the paramedics to the ER. So that takes us to this moment. The thing about fearlessness is people often think you're born with it, but the reality is it's a choice. It's a choice to be fearless, and it's something that you can build up over time. When you're faced with a challenge, to face it head on, to overcome it, making that decision over and over again is what creates your sense of fearlessness. That anything that can be built up can also be torn down. And that's what happened to me after this event. Places started to feel a little bit less safe. I mean, if this can happen to me in a small town surrounded by family and friends, it can happen anywhere. To this day, there's things that I'm not even conscious about, but I'm starting to realize, like I won't let anyone walk behind me. If I feel people walking up behind me, I'll move to the side and let them cross so that I can see them in front of me. And with lighting, with cameras and being on set or on stage, I'm really self-conscious about the fact that still to this day, the bone is dented in. And if the light's not a certain way, you can actually see that my face is not smooth here. The bone is still broken. Sometimes people even make comments that I look tired or I need to get more sleep, but the dark circle under my eye is actually just from the shadow of the bone being dented in. So over the last 5 years, I've been trying to find a solution to help me get my confidence and get that fearlessness back. And I've spoken to multiple plastic surgeons that said that to smooth the bone out, they would have to re-break it and insert a metal rod under my eye, and I wouldn't be able to dance for 6 months. So that's not an option. I actually tried a fat transfer where they take fat from your obliques and they inject it over your eye. And I did both because they wanted to try and even it out and make it even. And at first that helped a little bit, but over time the fat has sort of settled and kind of right back where I started. And there's some other options too, but everything's really expensive. Insurance doesn't cover it, and there's a lot of downtime involved, especially around the eye. It's a really risky area to do any type of procedure on. But the thing that really helped me get through it and kept me going has been you guys, my online community. And it really just hit home how important it is to have that community, to have each other's backs, to look out for each other. And the guy that did this to me, like, he did some jail time, but he's out now and he had a wife and kids. And the reason I wanted to make this video is because he's not the only one out there. And sometimes it's not as obvious as you would think that someone like this could be out there and be this dangerous. And if there's one message that I hope this story can leave, it's that we need to take care of each other. We need to look out for each other. And if you get a weird feeling, if something seems off, if someone seems like they're in trouble, you need to speak up. And to this day, I still don't know why that guy attacked me. I have some theories, but ultimately it doesn't matter. There's probably something inside him that needs healing. And as they say, hurt people hurt people. So let's just have each other's backs and do our part to make every person feel a little more fearless.